Hey everyone, this has been a project I've been wanting to tackle for a long time, a Chicagoland sports podcast. And this is just a test run. This is just the first video I'm making. I'm just doing it through YouTube on a channel that I created. And if it goes well, it goes well. And if it doesn't, hey, we tried. Obviously, there's no guests on this show today. Maybe in the future, I can figure out a way to accomplish that with all the other things I have to tackle in my life. But for today, we're just going to do a short segment to kick things off. I'm going to name this podcast The Way I See It. And we're going to just discuss mostly Chicago sports things. And ideally, what I want to do is do this podcast once a week. If it becomes more popular, I may do it more often, kind of like a little mini radio show. And I would also like to occasionally maybe tackle national sports news, be it the NBA, the NHL, NFL. Those of you who follow me on my social media at tfrolig. And so for those who don't know who I am, who don't follow me on social media or follow my newspaper print work, I have been a journalist since 1996 in the Chicago suburbs, and I've been a sports journalist since 2008. I've won numerous Illinois Press Association, Northern Illinois News Association, Newspaper Association awards, and I have some experience at this. So in honor of me kicking off covering high school hockey starting tonight between Stevenson and one of my old high schools, Glenbrook South, I thought we'd talk some hockey today. And why do I want to talk hockey today specifically? Well, I'll tell you why. Last night, the Chicago Blackhawks just absolutely annihilated the St. Louis Blues on national TV, nonetheless, in St. Louis, 8-3. I believe they had a 3-goal second period, a 3-goal third period. And for those of you who watched, boy, what a game it was by the Blackhawks. By far and away, their best game of the season so far. And so it kind of begs the question. This was the biggest victory by the Hawks in St. Louis, I think they said, since at least 1990, maybe ever. They were talking about it on the broadcast last night. And one of the things they discussed was how the Hawks aren't letting people push them around anymore. I went and looked on their roster. They have 11 players, not counting goalies, who are 6'2" or bigger now. Whereas the Hawks of the past decade or so, after their mini dynasty or dynasty, whatever you call it, simply didn't have the size, the physicality to play, I don't think, with the modern NHL teams. They're too small, too finesse-oriented, and that's one of the things that Frank Nazar, who, by the way, if you haven't seen his goal last night, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's just take a look here, and you take a look. Last night in the second period, Frank Nazar, okay, he's 21 years old. He's a winger for us, or a forward, and just absolute gorgeous goal by Nazar. Actually, I apologize. I called him a winger. I believe he's a center. So the Hawks have a lot of depth at center right now. Anyhow, he scores this goal. It's just a brilliant roof shot highlight reel goal. Okay? And after he scores this goal, it's making the rounds on social media right now. You see up here, you look, a brawl ensues, okay? There's a huge brawl that ensues. And that's because when Nazar scored the goal, he goes crashing into the net, into the Blues net. They're not happy about it. They take exception immediately to this. The goal still counts. I believe St. Louis got a minor penalty after the fact here, too. And you notice, while all of his teammates are busy brawling, he's out there celebrating in the background, and it's created a lot of internet memes and a lot of conversation on Facebook that I've noticed today. And so fun times again for the Blackhawks at the United Center, even though this game was on the road last night. And what if I told you that when you woke up today, the Chicago Blackhawks, okay, Chicago Blackhawks coming into today, when you woke up, have more goals scored than anybody in the National Hockey League right now. Now, anytime you score 8 goals in a game, Obviously, that's going to skew that a little bit when they've only played 5 games, but it beats the alternative, especially given what the Hawks fans have put up with for years and years and years now. And when you take a look at this roster and you take a look at this lineup, just this is from last night, and you take a look here and you see Connor Bedard. He had a 3-assist game, and I think they said that was like his second or third 3-assist game that he's had in his career. I'd have to double check. Lucas Reichel had a 2-goal game. Alex Vlasic, a 2-assist game. Ilya Mikheyev, a goal and an assist. Just Tyler Bertuzzi, a veteran who, when he's healthy, is a 20 to 30 goal guy. 2 points for him last night. And then obviously the highlight reel goal by Nazar, who I think is going to be a star in the National Hockey League. Now, why do I say that? When I watch him, he reminds me of some players. Okay? You have a player who's really young yet with elite speed. We saw flashes of that last year. And one of the things that I think he's going to do is be a really good two-way hockey player in the mold of like a Dirk Graham, I don't want to say Marian Hossa because that's obviously one of the best two-way players that's ever lived. But when I watch him, you see flashes of things like that. Okay. I'm also looking at a smarter Connor Bedard out there who's starting to mature, who's not tolerating being pushed around by people anymore. Neither is this team. The Hawks are not pushovers anymore. They're just not. And when you look up and down their roster and look at some of the depth they have, and they put veteran guys around some of these young guys, like Nick Foligno, Bertuzzi, Teuvo Teravainen, who are all guys who are real great depth players that are providing stability for these young players. Colton Dach is only 22 years old. Lucas Reichel, he's 23. Nazar, who I mentioned, is 21. Connor Bedard, who already has a Rookie of the Year and had kind of a sophomore slump last year, he's 20. Okay. The Hawks are going to have more young players coming up from Rockford. They're drafting well. Now, I'm not going to go over the top here, and there's some discussion on TNT among the analysts last night talking about, well, the Hawks probably aren't going to be a playoff team, but what if they are? I think they lack some depth defensively, but let me tell you right now, Artyom Levshunov, the 19-year-old defenseman that they have, who is on their team right now. I spent a lot of time watching him last night with the puck. And let me tell you, this is one of the more mature 19-year-old defensemen as far as his puck handling maturity that I've seen in my time since I've been a Blackhawks fan since the early 1980s at this old place in the background here, the Chicago Stadium. He doesn't panic with the puck. He's not quick to just want to get rid of it. He has that kind of Hjalmarsson type, I'm going to hold on to the puck and possess it instead of making stupid passes or risky passes. He keeps the puck. He skates it out of his zone. He makes smart decisions, especially for a 19-year-old. And we're going to see him for a long time here in Chicago, anchoring part of this defense. He's going to be one of those guys. He's a +5 through 4 games this season, which, a 19-year-old kid with the schedule the Hawks have had to start the season has been pretty rough. And he's held his own. I've just loved what I've seen from him. I can't imagine how good he's going to be in a couple of years. So the Blackhawks have a lot of young guys here that are going to be locked up for a long time. And again, they just signed Nazar to a 7-year deal. And the cap hit on that is only like $6.5 million. So suffice it to say, by the time he matures, that's going to be an absolute steal. They locked up Spencer Knight for 3 years. I like him better than Soderblom, who started last night. I think Soderblom has games where he kind of has these lapses to where he's not as necessary, and I don't want to insult anybody, but not as skilled of a goalie as Spencer Knight is, or maybe the better way of saying it is, I don't think his ceiling is as high as Knight. And I think the Hawks organization feels that way too, which is why they gave Knight an extension. And I think when you see some of these young defensemen starting to mature in front of him, you're going to see the Hawks just get better and better. So really, really exciting times right now if you're a Blackhawks fan. And again, you look at the standings here early in the season. The Blackhawks have more goals, even though they played more games than most teams, than anybody in the NHL right now. They need to tighten some things up defensively, as I've stated, but that's going to happen. You know, you're going to have some learning, growing pains if you're a young defenseman in the NHL in particular, but especially when you're on a team this young. But the fact that they're through 5 games sitting at 500, and the 3 games, they're 2-2-1. The 3 games that they've lost, one of which was in overtime, were all by 1 goal. So they've been in every single one of the 5 hockey games that they've played in to start this season. And one of the things I've seen and that other analysts have seen too when they're talking about are the fact that the Hawks have a lot more team speed this year. Bedard was working with trainers and people in the offseason up in Canada, I believe, and he looks a step quicker. He's not hesitant anymore. It's just the Hawks are getting back on defense. They're forechecking better. And when they have the puck in the offensive zone, I'd like to see them shoot the puck more. Their shot rate isn't very good. It's in like the lower third of the league to start the year. So they're not getting as many pucks on net as they should. But at the same time, when they have the puck, they're possessing it more than last year. They're doing excellent cycling in the corner. It reminds me of the early years when Quenneville came to the Hawks, and it looks a lot more structured, like the guys have really, really been working on possessing the puck and being in the right spots on the ice to make plays happen. And you saw that last night in the Blues game when there were a lot of open backdoor guys sneaking up, defensemen pinching it on the play confidently, not afraid to keep the puck in the offensive zone. And a lot of their young defensemen and their forwards seem to have really, really good hockey IQ and instinct, which I think is going to be why this team ends up becoming a real force in the next couple of years in the Western Conference in the National Hockey League. And the Hawks are going to be able to patch players here and there coming in. They'll have some cap space and free agency coming up. So things are only going to get better for this team. I'm excited about it. I know the fans are excited about it after all the suffering we've had around here for the last decade or so, watching this team just kind of be a basement dweller after the dynasty and after the Stan Bowman debacles. Just nonsense that went on here that had no business going on with an original 6 franchise with a storied history like this. I know there were a lot of fans that were calling for, guys like Taze and Kane to come back. And I don't think you can go down that bridge anymore. As nice as that would have been to see them do like a little farewell tour here, kind of like when Dennis Savard did that back in the day with the Blackhawks, came back to them a second time in the mid-1990s. That was nice. And, they're throwing him on a 3rd and 4th line, which is kind of what they're doing with Jonathan Taze now up in Winnipeg. And speaking of Taze, I was happy to see him go to his hometown. That's kind of like a storybook ending in a way when you get to go back to where you grew up and play for a team that you grew up watching and knowing and being around. So again, just really, really great time to be a Chicago Blackhawks fan now. And I apologize. I think somebody just started a vehicle outside. So if you hear that in the background, that's okay. I'm about to shut this off anyway. In the future, in these podcasts, I really am going to try and tackle more than one subject at a time or more than one team and make these 35, 40 minutes, maybe an hour. But just to kick this off today, I just wanted to stick with one team, especially in light of the Blackhawks scoring 8 goals yesterday, which, it's just one of those things where you see the flashes of brilliance. You see the youth maturing right before our eyes already, kind of like in 2009 when the Hawks had some of the young guys and Duncan Keith and Jonathan Taze and Patrick Kane kind of having breakout seasons. You could see the writing on the wall. And I think that's where we are with this Blackhawks team. Going forward, a couple of the other things I'd like to talk about in the near future, obviously, the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams, 10 touchdowns, I believe it is now. It's either 9 or 10 touchdowns, I think, in 5 weeks. Only 2 interceptions. And Ben Johnson's offense is really starting to show signs of these guys having a lot of confidence. I mean, I can't tell you the joy that I've had the last 2-3 weeks watching the Chicago Bears, specifically for one reason, okay? And one reason only. When we're getting the ball late in the game, with the game on the line, we're so used as Bears fans to just losing in those situations, to just pissing the game away. That's not happening. 2 or 3 times now this season, late in the fourth quarter, we've seen Caleb Williams engineer and lead drives down the field with under 3-4 minutes left in the fourth quarter when they need to score, and they go down and they score. I'm not used to that. It's almost like being in shock when you watch the Bears lose so many football games late in the fourth quarter. I'm not used to it. I don't think Bears fans are used to it. I still think this is a football team, as I stated in the preseason, that's probably looking at a 9-8 record, maybe 10 wins if they're lucky. But who knows? If they keep playing football at the level that they are, and I'll have to go and double check this. And again, this is why I didn't want to get off on a tangent, but I believe the Chicago Bears now have 21 or more points, I think, in every one of their games this season. I need to go check that. But it's different. The only critique I will have on offense for them that I've had so far, like if you look at the Bears tight end usage, we're late in the fourth quarter of that game against the Commanders last week. And obviously you have these really rainy conditions and a perfect situation to use short passes, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously they won the football game. But in the fourth quarter, I logged online and I wanted to see how much Ben Johnson was using his tight ends. And there's times when he's used his tight ends brilliantly this season. But I happen to think that Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet have the ability to just be monsters at the tight end position receiving the football. And I still can't understand why we don't target them more. Maybe that's a Caleb Williams thing. Maybe that's by design. Obviously, Williams has this real great chemistry going with Odunze. But just, I'd like to see a little bit more of the tight end usage. It's an easy check down option. You can use the middle of the field. Loveland and Kmet are huge targets. So going forward, I think the Bears offense has an ability to become even more dynamic as it is once these players get used to Ben Johnson's systems, playing around each other, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll talk Bears in my next podcast. Again, this one was just meant to primarily be the Blackhawks. And I'll touch base on one more thing here. We have the whole Chicago Cubs debacle. Now, it's no secret for those of you who follow me on social media, on X, Twitter, what have you, that I grew up a Chicago White Sox fan. So times are tough for me, okay? And first instinct, everybody always says, well, he's a Sox fan. He obviously hates the Cubs. You know, I don't root against the Chicago Cubs, except in rare instances when they're playing the White Sox. And this latest one, I kind of remained neutral because my son, who just became an adult, he is a Milwaukee Brewers fan because we live about 5 or 6 miles from the border. It's easier to go to Brewers games. And I had a blast watching the Milwaukee Brewers this season. I think they're in big trouble against the Dodgers. And as I've stated on that site numerous times, I think the Brewers are really going to regret the fact they didn't take a chance and make a move for some big bats or a big bat before the trade deadline, because the Dodgers, the Brewers have only had one at bat against the Dodgers in the first 2 games with a runner in scoring position. That's not going to get the job done. I don't care how good your pitching is. I don't know how good you've been at manufacturing runs. Just absolute lights out stuff from the Dodgers pitching staff, kind of reminiscent of the 2005 White Sox where they had 4 complete games in a row. Just one of those things where I think the Milwaukee Brewers are going to have to make some adjustments because the Dodgers pitchers are just outsmarting them. They just are. They were pitching backwards last game to where you had guys throwing their off-speed stuff as their primary pitches and then throwing in 97-mile-an-hour fastballs on the paint and stuff. I mean, if you're pitching backwards like that and you're looking for a fastball and you're just getting filthy breaking stuff all the time, it's hard to hit. It's hard to square stuff up. And the Dodgers know this. The Dodgers know the Brewers are looking to be aggressive early in counts, that they like fastball hitting, their fastball hitting team. And so to their credit, the Los Angeles Dodgers have exploited that. And, you know, I'd like to see Milwaukee advance and get their chance for the first time in the World Series since 1982. But ironically, they beat the Dodgers all 6 times they played them during the regular season, and that's out the window. Postseason baseball is completely different than regular season baseball, and I tell people that all the time, okay? If you think you're going to go into postseason baseball getting away with the same things against elite pitching that you got away with during the regular season, you're sorely mistaken. And that brings me to the Chicago Cubs, who we'll talk about very briefly. Now, the Cubs are a team with a very bright future. They're just raw yet. They're young. I would have liked to see them make some more moves. It's disappointing that Kyle Tucker, who was going to lose a ton of money in free agency, did not produce in the playoffs. Most of the Cubs lineup didn't produce well in the playoffs. It's just unfortunate. But much like the Cubs in 2014, 2015, before they won the title in 2016, what I saw a lot of in the playoffs was a lot of young, inexperienced players on the Cubs roster, and even some veteran players, unfortunately, who are trying to hit 3-run home runs with nobody on base. You can't do that. You can't be chasing out of the zone. You need to be working counts. You need to be getting base runners, because in this modern Major League Baseball, everybody throws 95 miles an hour. It's not easy to hit pitches going that fast. I don't care how much experience you have. That's why you see the strikeout rate going through the roof, because you've guys that are unwilling to adjust when they're down in the count, and they're still popping off launch angle swings left and right in situations where they need to be making contact, which is one of the strengths of the Milwaukee Brewers. Their hitters have done that all season. And that's why Pat Murphy's going to win Manager of the Year, because he's taught his players how to situationally adjust and not just try to win with home runs all the time. Obviously, home runs are the biggest factor in offenses winning games. If your team's hitting home runs, you're going to win games. Okay? I'm not knocking home runs. I'm not knocking their addition to your win probability. But when push comes to shove and things get dirty in the postseason against elite pitching staffs and bullpens, you have to, if you want to win a World Series, know how to adjust and do the little things and modify your swing and start hitting line drives the other way with 2 strikes and staying inside the ball. Just little details that casual fans might not see. Those things need to happen for you to succeed in the postseason. We obviously have the Cubs and Brewers, and this becoming more and more of a rivalry. You have the Milwaukee Brewers flying the L flag. I know I've had some opinions about that on X. My bottom line is always the same. When we have the same arguments over and over about bat flips, celebrations, you don't like it, go out and beat them next time. Beating the other team, it solves everything. I know fans love to talk about this sort of thing. I thought it was kind of silly and maybe a little bit petty of them to hold up an L flag, but you stop and you think about it. Is it also then petty for the Cubs to be holding up a giant W flag gloating every single time that they win? How is that any different? I mean, it seems like a double standard to me. Obviously, you may have your own opinion or opinions on that topic. It just seems to have created more hatred among the Cubs fan base, especially the diehard fans toward Milwaukee. I get it. But again, it's a stupid flag. I'd be more mad about the fact that the Cubs need to start signing and spending a little bit more money on guys who can get on base a little bit more consistently, because that's what destroyed you in the Milwaukee Brewers. That's why you're not playing the Dodgers right now, because you had a .306 on base percentage after the All-Star break as a team, which is just downright awful. The Cubs are actually lucky that they had the kind of start they did in April and May, where they were just absolutely scalding red hot. Because without that, they would have been fighting for a wild card space even. And to their credit, they had that great start to the season, and they kind of leveled off like they thought they would. And I said, and I predicted, I said, this is an 85 to 92 win team that has some flaws, and that's exactly what it wound up being. So hats off to the Chicago Cubs for having a hell of a season. Hats off to the Milwaukee Brewers for having a hell of a regular season and good playoffs so far up before these first two games of the playoffs, or the NLCS against the Dodgers, I mean. I really think going to LA, they have their work cut out for them now. I'm interested to see how they respond. If they can take game 3 against Los Angeles, the way some of the Brewers pitchers have been catching lightning in a bottle, like Priester and Misiorowski, you never know what could happen. But they got to win that game 3, otherwise they're cooked, absolutely cooked. So anyhow, I'm excited to see how that goes. I'm happy to see some other teams in the postseason. You obviously have the Mariners, you have the Blue Jays, which the Blue Jays, I've been wondering when it's their time for a long time. Just a dynamic team offensively. This could be their year. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Anyhow, thanks for joining me on this inaugural, now almost half-hour journey discussing Chicagoland area sports. In the future, once I modify this, once I have access to other tools to where I can have people on this podcast, I would love to invite people onto this show, again, which I'm going to call, I think for now, at least the way I see it. Why choose that? I had a blog that I started like 10, 15 years ago that I called it that. And so I think I'll just stick with that. It's going to be on a channel, at least for right now, on YouTube called Chicagoland Sports Media that I created to just put like local high school highlights when I cover games. But I think I'm going to use that as the foundation to put these videos on. If any of you have any other things you'd like to discuss or any thoughts, just put them in the comments on my page. I will try to respond to anybody who's respectful in those comments. I know it can be boring listening to one person talk the entire time during a podcast, during a radio show. But again, I'm just making do with what I have. And this, again, is just a test run. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. Thanks for listening, however long you listen to, whether it's a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And hopefully in the future, we can make this podcast even more fun than this one. So hats off to the Blackhawks. I'm actually going to start watching them again. I mean, I still watch them when they were doing bad, just not nearly as much. I mean, you can tell when you're wasting your time and investing time in something that just is going to be fruitless. And frankly, that's how I felt about the Chicago White Sox the last couple of seasons as well. We can get into that topic another time, but hats off to them too for having a good second half of their season. And I think the great thing that you can leave this podcast with going forward here as we go into fall is knowing that the stock is just really rising for several of our Chicago teams finally. It's definitely rising for the Hawks. It's definitely rising for the Bears. The Bulls, that's another mess and another nightmare I'll talk about another time. That's a team that's been stuck in mid-level salary cap hell. Just refuses to you know what? I'm not even going to get into it. The Bulls are a little bit of a mess. They're just stuck in mediocrity, and I think they're going to still be for a little while, unfortunately. But to finally have the Cubs stock is still – they're going to be a playoff contender for years to come, just like the Brewers are. There's too much young talent on both of those teams for them to not continue at the level that they've been playing at. That's exciting. So finally, we have some exciting times here for Chicago sports fans, some things to look forward to. And boy, we were overdue. So my advice is if you get some time, if you can afford the ridiculous Xfinity pricing packages they have for the top tier now. And again, they're putting Cubs fans in that top tier now too, to where you got to pay for quality internet and the top tier package like $220 a month, which is absolutely ridiculous. Thanks, Xfinity, and all the greed out there. Take some time and watch the Hawks. You'll see what I'm talking about with them kind of turning a corner a little bit. And it's an exciting time to be a Chicago sports fan. It really is. Thanks, everybody, and hope you enjoyed this kind of inaugural edition of my podcast here, the way I see it, talking about Chicagoland sports and things of that nature. Have a great weekend, everybody. Again, this is Tim Frohlig. You can see my work as a freelance journalist in the Northwest Herald, primarily, McHenry County's only daily newspaper. They use my work also in the Daily Herald, and I'm also featured in the weekly newspapers in the sports section. Journal and Topics Media Group, that's a weekly newspaper group based out of Des Plaines, Illinois. I know they're not as well known, but they're run by some real nice people. So consider subscribing to them if you're looking for news in like Northern Cook County and that area and things like that. They do a great job over there as well. Thanks, everybody, and have a great weekend. I appreciate you.